me feel uncomfortable. Like open spaces. Like literally I could be walking down the hall and there could be an open stairwell and my knees will buckle as if I'm falling. Another thing that makes me feel uncomfortable are bridges. Ever since I was a little girl, when the car approached the bridge, I just got an uneasy feeling. So when my son and I were traveling and he was doing his campus visits for college, we were in the Bay Area. So we had to go see the iconic Golden Gate Bridge. And so as we're driving down the highway, I'm souping myself up because it's the Golden Gate Bridge and you have to see the Golden Gate Bridge, right? So I'm driving down the highway and I'm setting myself up and I'm gonna go across the bridge. But if you've ever been to the Bay Area, you know that when the fog sets in, you cannot see the bridge from street level. So the closer I get to the bridge, I can't see the bridge, and I began to go into a full-fledged panic attack. And I'm looking at the exits, and I'm trying to figure out how to get off because I cannot get across this bridge. So my son comes down, he said, calm down, there's an exit over there. So we get off the exit, and I calm down, and we look at the bridge from the observation deck. Heights make me uncomfortable. I'll tell you about that later. What really makes me feel uncomfortable is talking about the achievement gap. And the achievement gap refers to a significant and persistent disparity in academic performance or educational attainment between several groups of students, like whites and minorities, or students from upper income and lower income households. Why does it make me feel uncomfortable? Maybe because I believe so much in the extraordinary gifts and talents of brown-skinned children that the achievement gap challenges that and says that they aren't as special as I think they are. Maybe it makes me uncomfortable because despite the disparities placed upon my ancestors, they rose and did great and mighty things. Maybe it makes me uncomfortable because the achievement gap is alive and well in me. And this disparity and this gap, this great distance, this great difference, this great breach makes me vulnerable. So I am lower middle class. I grew up in a lower middle class family, two-parent households, but we lived from paycheck to paycheck. So when you live in paycheck to paycheck, I was relatively happy. I don't recall going to bed hungry. But when you live from paycheck to paycheck, you have no plans and no dreams. And so the importance of education was never instilled in me. My goals and plans were never instilled in me. And so I just kind of went to school because someone had to watch me between 8 and 3 morning. I remember being in kindergarten, and my teacher would periodically do an alphabet check. So she had this long pointer, and she'd take it and she pointed up to an alphabet, and she'd call on a student. Well, this particular day, she took her pointer, she pointed to a letter, and she called on me. And I went, T! And she looked at me, and she took her pointer, and she pointed at another letter, and called on me again. And I went, H! And it was at that moment she realized that I could not recite my alphabet, that I could only sing the alphabet. So she sent a letter home to my parents telling them that she couldn't send me to first grade because I could only sing the alphabet and not say the alphabet. Well, my family had never, ever heard of anyone failing kindergarten. So I recall my brother that night taking my mother's phone book. It was an old-fashioned phone book with the alphabets on the tabs. And he sat there and he taught me how to say the alphabet. And my brother that night bridged the gap. I pretty much went through my high school career, just going to school, trying not to get any letters sent home to my family, and being a good student. And I recall in my senior year, the university that I attended was under fire for some low minority attendance. So they sent the recruiters out to the different schools, and they had these family meetings. And they came to my school, and my mother attended the meeting. And we sat there, and they called and said, who wants to attend this university? And my mother raised her hand and said, she'll go. And I turned around to see who she was talking about, because she had never had a conversation with me about college. She had never had a conversation with me about my future or what I was doing, and I was a senior in high school. And when you have a senior in high school and sitting in a college without any plans for any future, the bridge pretty much looks like this. When we talk about a bridge, we're talking about a structure that spans obstacles, right? That doesn't cover anything underneath, right? And the purpose of it is to provide a passage for someone to go over the bridge. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because I can't fix the achievement gap today, but we can talk a lot about how to bridge it. By the time my children were in school, I was determined that they were going to know their ABCs. Not only did they know their ABCs before they attended kindergarten, they knew how to read books. So by the time they got to school, the teachers loved them. They raved over them, and we were so excited. And one day, they brought home a form, and it was about an after-school program, the Lutheran Family Children's Services Mentoring Program. Well, I was so overconfident that my children knew how to read already that I snubbed the program. So a couple of weeks on, the teachers approached me and said, Ms. Watkins, we would really love for your children to attend this program. It really is a good program. So trusting the teachers, I sent them to the program. After a couple of weeks, they brought home a permission slip form. They wanted to take my children to the tennis club. You would have thought it was a permission slip to the moon. The tennis club. The tennis club? I've lived in St. Louis my whole entire life, and I never knew there was a tennis club. And I signed a permission slip, and we went to the tennis club, and I had to go see for myself. I'm in awe. So at the end of the school year, they bring home another permission slip, and they want me to sign it. And this time they want me to go as well. And they're going to send us to Chicago on an Amtrak train. I had never been on a train. Therefore, my kids had never been on a train. And as I'm sitting riding this train, it just hit me that the achievement gap is not just about academics, it is about exposure. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, like, what haven't I exposed my kids to? And what I haven't been exposed to. So if I hadn't been exposed, I can't expose them. And I'm just glad it was a long train ride. And after that moment, I made up my mind that every summer I was going to throw my kids in the car and expose them to as much as I could. Our very first trip was to the Smoky Mountains. And we went there in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. They had this quaint little sky lift. And I told my family, go on, get exposure. Expose yourself to the sky lift. And they said, no, Mom, you have to come with us. Okay? So I'm on the sky lift, and I'm going, it's not too bad, it's not going fast. You know, I'll just ride all the way around. I just hold on and ride through. And until you get to the top. And when we get to the top, the man says, ma'am, you have to get off. And I said, no, thank you. I'm just going to go all the way around. He says, no, ma'am, everyone has to get off. So as they peel my fingers off the bar, and I get off. So it's not too bad. There's a souvenir shop and little things you can eat and do until it's time to go down. And they want me to hop on the seat while looking down on the mountain. And I couldn't do it. And I sat there and I let people pass me, and I sat there and let people pass me, but I couldn't do it. And I said, can you call me a cab? No, ma'am, there's no cabs that come to the top of the mountain. So finally my daughter says, Mom, You always told us we can do all things through Christ that strengthened us. So as I'm looking over the mountain, I hop on the seat and I go down. It was such a traumatic experience that the next couple of days while we were in Gatlinburg, people were pointing at me like, look, she finally came down. But it was those moments like that that I knew exposure wasn't easy. Just like the academic gains weren't easy, exposing my kids to things weren't easy. When we talk about the achievement gap, we talk about things like this. So after the program, the teachers in my children's school had encouraged me to put my kids into private school. I couldn't afford private school. And they said, oh, they'll give you money. So we put my kids in private school, and a year after that, this private school asked me to attend. And the grave difference I saw from our experience in the public school, the underserved public school, and the privileges we had in the private school. So in that job position, I was offered a chance to work at a school at a program called Aim High. And Aim High is a nonprofit organization that serves economically and academically underserved students throughout the city of St. Louis. And we bus hundreds and hundreds of students to 3 different private campuses, and we provide them with 5 weeks of summer academic learning and exposure. It's a perfect balance, right? And these children, what they see in the summer is totally different from what they see in the school year. And what they see in what we free them from in the summer in their public schools, these students are bused, so they have to get up to school early, right? And most of my private school students, they drive to school. Where the school is free and my students pay, mostly it's families that can afford to pay that attend. There are limited school supply in the underserved school systems. And most of the time when teachers run out of supplies, they have to go into their pockets to replenish their own supplies. In the private school setting, my teachers have an abundance of supplies, and whatever they need, they just order. There's little access to technology. When my kids were in the private school, they had never seen a laptop. They had access to those in the private school. Private school also had smart boards. In the public school, my kids went through, there was overcrowded classes and high discipline. And in the private school, they had 1 to 15 teacher ratios and little to no discipline. And what we find out through the program, because we take our kids through high school, that our ACT scores are lower than those at a private school, and the chances of them going to college, that their college graduation rates are lower than those that go to the private schools. And AIM has a wonderful program. And it is a program where we need a lot of people. And just as bridges are delicate and bridges are intricate and need a lot of working pieces, so are programs like AIM High. And we need volunteers such as yourselves. We need all those things. We need fundings, and we need our advancement directors and our administrators to go out and find money for these programs. And we need our students to commit 4 years of their lives, 4 years of their lives, every summer, 5 weeks, just to get ahead, just to close some gaps. And for those students that commit that time, we are able to show increases in what they do. We also need our teachers. Our teachers have to make that same level of commitment that the teachers do. And after a full year of school, most of our teachers come from schools of underserved communities. Like, they still have to come and give 5 more weeks of their summer in order for our programs to work. We also need people such as yourselves. Our program cannot work without our TAs. And our TAs are high school students and college students that make that same level of sacrifice, that have that same passion and that same uncomfortableness of dealing and handling the achievement gap. Eldridge Cleaver said, you either be part of the problem or you're part of the solution. And it's almost feels like it's not a first statement to say, but there are so many children in need. There are so many students that have learning gaps. There are so many situations that it just, if everyone did a little bit, right, we'll never close that gap. And I can stand here today and be grateful for all of those in my life that if my kindergarten classroom was crowded, my kindergarten teacher wouldn't have caught my learning difference, and I wouldn't have been able to close the gap. If my brother hadn't sat and taught me the ABCs, I wouldn't have been able to close the gap. If the university hadn't been under fire for low minority enrollment, we wouldn't have been able to close the gap. If my mother hadn't attended that meeting, we wouldn't have been able to close the gap. So you may not know when or how or what difference it may make. It could be a donation of money. It could be a donation of time. All those things matter, and all those things make a difference in the lives of others. And I am so grateful for all the gap closers, those that bridged that gap in my life, that allowed me the opportunity to begin to bridge gaps in the lives of other people and other children and other students. And I'm thankful for that today. And even though I'm a first-generation college graduate, right, just by the grace of God, right, I've graduated 2 children from college, right, and they've done great and wonderful things. So all these things matter, and you never know when it may help. And we'll never close that achievement gap, and I will always feel uncomfortable. Thank you.